Oh no, I want both. Here we go.
Oh, I don't know that I like that one.
What do you
You're in
mean?
a small box right now. Let me see if I can get you in a big box.
In the big box. There is no need for that.
No, it's just it looks better if we're side by side hosting.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let me go through all of these. Hi, for anyone who's just joined us, we're just getting the setup correct here.
Well, might as well turn on this bright light. I don't think it's necessary. Hey,
Hey, Brooke, how's it going?
he's still setting this stuff up because I sure as
I'm
heck don't know how
trying
to do
to
it.
I'm trying to set it up. It's my first dual hosting here, so maybe I'm getting it
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. I actually have no idea what you're pressing right now, so I kind of wish I was peeking over your shoulder because
Let's see. I'm trying to go in through like the more button and look for if there's another way to invite you.
it's all good. Let's see.
Co-host. I think let me drop you for a second and I'll invite you back.
Okay, sounds good. Nope.
Oddly, that wouldn't let me bring you in as a co-host. All right, so we'll go with this for now.
Yeah.
The question I have: when you're a co-host, you see different comments than I do.
Oh, interesting.
And what do you see right now for comments?
It just says Andrea has joined and some crazy lady has joined. Hi, some crazy lady. And Liberty Bell. So yeah, I'm seeing like
Okay,
who's
so we're
joining.
seeing the same one now.
Okay,
So
well that's
that's
good.
I wish it'd do that all the time. So might actually be better like this. But all right, so let's go ahead and officially start.
Sounds good.
This is the inaugural Sci-Fi with Friends live. This is
Yes.
something I'm going to do with multiple authors, and hopefully I can get other sci-fi authors to do with others even without me. We can make this a regular thing.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of this is that myself and my guest, in this case, Andrea, will talk about one of our books, maybe some things we're working on. We'll go in some questions, maybe like why we write, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also going to try to take questions from anyone who's watching us. So if you have any question at any time, go ahead and type it out, and we'll do our best to answer it as we can. We really enjoy sci-fi and sci-fi fantasy. So if you have questions, thoughts, even if you don't even know what it's about, and you want a description of what it's about, we can help you there. So as my guest, I'll ask Andrea to talk about her book first,
Okay.
or books. And if you have something you could hold up and show the group, that would be great. Not
I
so much.
am not prepared for that. I really just slapped on a shirt and came over here, honestly. So my name
That's
is
all
actually
right.
pronounced Andrea Barringer, and I write sci-fi. It's really weird. Maybe I should compare notes with you at some other point, but I am having difficulty with the genre because it is definitely sci-fi, but it's not hard sci-fi like The Expanse, right? Like sometimes when you
Mm-hmm.
think of sci-fi, you're thinking something epic like that. Mine has elements of like romance. There's definitely some elements of like fantasy things that you would kind of see in a Sarah J. Maas novel. There's also some like not dystopian, but like the feel of the Hunger Games and even like Divergent. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in this book that just kind of obviously shows the type of books I like to read, all just meld together. And it works. It works, but it's an interesting meld, that's for sure.
So we'll dig more into that a little bit. I'll quickly introduce my book, which I did come with a prop, if I can
Ah,
get it in the right direction, and I even flipped my camera. My first book's called The After. Have a nice poster behind me, you could even see. Um, my book is a space opera, space fantasy. Space opera, getting to the point of like The Expanse is a space opera, but it borders on hard sci-fi space opera. Most space opera is more like Star Wars
mm-hmm.
and Star Trek, where it's lighter sci-fi. You're not going to explain the elements. I've actually done a video, if you look at my videos, to describe what space opera is, and I think I've done a fairly good explanation there. But there's definitely flavors, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
can go on the hard side, the light side, and you can even merge it with other genres. Space fantasy is kind of a new term, and a lot of people are shoving Star Wars and Star Trek into fantasy genre nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little bit too generous when you say Star Trek is space fantasy, because there's not a fantasy element there. With Star Wars, for example, the Force is a fantasy element.
Yeah.
Um, so the terms aren't really hard and defined right now in the industry. Um, real quick, I just got a question. What is our pronouns? My pronouns is he, him, his. Andrea.
She and her.
So what you see is what you get with us, as far as pronouns. But a little bit more about my book, and then we'll go a little deeper on yours as well. My book is a space opera, but it's about an alternate afterlife in an alternate universe.
Okay.
Really, where the main character died and then went to somewhere more dreamlike. Something they imagined or something they felt they could imagine as a perfect life, but things don't actually go well. There's an element there that is hunting them down and trying to actually capture his new love interest. So it's a bit of a twist. So it has some love interest there. It has some religious stuff going on, minor religious stuff, because I'm not a religious person, and space opera and a little bit of space fantasy rolling in. And as my series progresses, it's going to go more space fantasy. Book two's being edited right now. And
Okay.
then as I go forward, I'll actually move into like lit RPG and stuff like that in the same series. So I'm
Well,
going
that
to
sounds like
morph
fun.
because it's afterlife. It could be different perspectives of what perfect is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of morphing that in my series like that.
Nice.
You want to give us another layer in your books and see where they go?
Yeah. So I don't know how to invert this, but I can show you an old book cover because unfortunately, or I guess this is a good problem, I gave away or have sold all of my current book, quantities or whatever. So I only have the old stuff, but it actually shows you what my characters look like. So it's a good thing. So the title is Dawn of the Elite, and my people, they are blue. But it's not like paranormal romance because when I think of paranormal romance, I'm thinking like not necessarily only aliens, but like almost like monsters, and essentially the entire plot is the romance. With this, it's definitely a lot of action. I'm a military, I'm a veteran, U.S. Army, so I use all of my experiences and I kind of just sprinkle it in there. Also, I was stationed at Walter Reed for most of my career, so a lot of my friends, a lot of my super close friends were medics. And even now as a civilian, I work at a hospital. So a lot of my close friends are nurses and clinical people. So I sprinkle all of that in here. So I love medical drama. I love mystery. That's one of the things that I love most about Harry Potter, like the series. Like, yeah, it's magic, but really the heart of it is the mystery. So I kind of have all of those elements in here. But to kind of give a quick synopsis, pretty much, um, Rhea, that's her name. She's one of my main protagonists in the story. She and her brother, they're twins. So if you are a twin or love the Weasleys from Harry Potter, maybe you'll feel my love for these twins. There's a lot of twins in this book series. Um, she and her brother are invited to a game, to like a winter game, and things don't seem the way they are. Like something kind of sketchy is happening, and she and her brother end up having to work at the palace to protect the royal infants. And there's a big bad guy essentially who wants to harm the kids, and so it's just kind of is centralized about that. Like, who's the bad guy? What does he want? How can we protect the kids? And there's also, of course, the romance element, the will they, won't they, slow burn, blah blah blah. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and the romance element is actually a classic space opera thing. So
Yep.
if as I'm hearing you describe this, if I were to, without actually reading it yet, describe it, I'd say you were a space opera with a sprinkling of military sci-fi,
Yeah, I
maybe with
agree.
a little fantasy too.
Definitely. Because I've definitely read the definition for space opera, and though it doesn't take place in space, it does have all of those other elements that kind of go with that. So I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, space opera has to be space based, and while
Yeah.
most of the time that's going to be spaceships and you've
Hmm.
got some sort of travel, it doesn't necessarily have to be, because you could take something like Star Trek and just
Hmm.
focus it all on a planet or focus it all on a station, and you're not technically doing the travel, and it still would work.
Hmm.
But it's still taking that spacefaring type time frame, that higher technology that just kind of works instead of having to describe it. And
Yeah.
that's really where the genre fits with that. But we're open to all things sci-fi here because
Yeah.
honestly, I love all things sci-fi. Hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi, even some sci-fi romance I could get around as long as it's not too deep into the romance side of it.
As
Um,
long as it's not
with
cringy.
Yeah, I've actually been told by someone I used for a beta reader on book two that they think I've done the perfect level of romance in my book two. And
That's
the
good.
way I do it is I lead it up into the entry level elements and then, kind of fade to black. And I did a little bit of that in book one, or actually quite a bit of it in book one, but I did it a little deeper in book two. So as the relationship builds in book two, I'm just showing a little bit more of it, and I don't think I'll go any deeper in the further books. I think I'll keep it at that level because I'm not a romance writer. Um,
Yep.
but I like leading up to the event and just kind of letting your imagination go with it.
That's excellent. Um, I'm smiling because I did something somewhat similar for book one. In book one, honestly, it's very G rated as far as the romance. But I guess it does depend on who you ask, because I think it's very PG-13, but I'm also very, very conservative. Like, I don't want my kid reading this, and she's 9. I would want her to be a little bit older. I've gotten reviews where people have said this was very G rated, and I'm like, I don't know if I agree. But I've also gotten book reviews where someone said this was way too scandalous. I can't believe the author wrote something like that. And I'm like, there wasn't even like a fade to black. It was just an obvious desire for the other person. So that was book one. Book two, on the other hand, I have opened the door and it is front and center. And it's embarrassing because my husband's the one who edits my book.
My wife edits mine too. She's my alpha reader. Um,
So,
she actually identified with two characters in there is identified as me and her. And
yeah,
if when I took that one character a little twist different or gave her a little more depth of a background, she was like, "No, that's not her." I'm like, "Well, it is in my head."
it is in my head.
So no, it's interesting. So I've done the same. I did get something. So I've got one person really flame out on me. they sent me a video personally on another platform, and they read into my book about 2/3 of the way in, and I have one character that's a lesbian,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a part of the story. It's just that character is.
Mm-hmm.
I have within my life, I'm very open, and I have a lot of friends that are a lot of different gender choices, and I normalize things like that. I've had someone flame out on me in that, and what I ended up doing for book two, kind of subconsciously, is I wrote more of that into book two. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple of relationships that are more, you know, more than just two people and
Mm-hmm.
more than just two choices. And I didn't know I was doing it out of a response to this one person that said something until after I wrote it. Then I liked
Yeah.
it, so I kept it.
Yeah. If it works, it works. Um, it's interesting. I wouldn't say it's similar, but I feel you because, well, I am a Christian, but I am not a Christian author. And so, hence that book review that I got saying, how dare I? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
dare I consider the fact that these two adults would want, to have a relationship. And nothing happens in book one. I'm giving it away. Nothing happens in book one. So, but no one's watching right now at this particular second. So what I did, because I was kind of like, okay, and the person says, I'm no prude. And I'm like, well, you kind of sound like one right now. So what I did was I just kind of changed my bio in my Amazon page, and I've just, it's two different parts of me. Obviously, my spirituality does matter at all parts of my life, but at the same time, I'm telling their story.
Yes.
And it's a saga, it's a journey, honestly. Like when I first conceptualized this book, I was actually thinking of the Pilgrim's Progress, just like all the trials and tribulations that they have to go to or go through in order to get from point A to point B. So that was the initial thought, like, gosh, like 6 years ago when I first started thinking about this book. But I'm telling their story, and I have to go where they lead me, essentially. So I totally get where you're going from. It just is what it is.
Yeah, and it's I could see where my influences were, but I think I would have wrote something like that anyways because I think the characters might have just went there without the influence.
Hmm.
I'm not sure though because I had the influence.
Now you
Um,
do. So the
but
world will
I
never know.
but I like to normalize things like that. So if I see something that is maybe that's a Star Trek influence on my childhood. If I see something that's culturally disturbing or culturally questionable,
Or
if
taboo.
that
Yeah.
comes into a point in my story, I'm gonna write it, and
Hmm.
I may or may not do it in a way that has any judgment. It might
Right.
just be,
It might just be. May not
and
even be
I like
just,
that.
yeah. On the other hand, I'm 100% in line of what you're saying, except mine is more about other situations. Like, for example, not only in my sci-fi series, but even in my military romance book, I talk very candidly about mental health awareness. I am somebody who tried committing suicide when I was younger. And so mental health is something that's very, very important to me. When I was when I was in the military, as you know, there's about 22 to 26 veterans that commit suicide every single, I think, day.
Yeah,
So I do talk about it a lot, especially in that military romance book. In this particular book, I do talk about mental health, but not necessarily with suicide, just mental health. I talk about substance abuse, just a whole bunch of different things. And it's not like I'm preaching it. I'm not like, putting it down anybody's throat. It's more like this is part of life. This is
hmm
what they're going through. This is how they're going through it. And it's not the main part of the story. It's just something that colors my character and gives them some depth, honestly. Um,
and I think that makes for a more believable character and a more
Yeah.
believable situation when people have flaws, people have backgrounds, people have history, um, people have different choices, and
Hmm.
all of that influences kind of how real someone feels. I've read some authors' work where everyone was, came off as perfectly clean cut, and no issues whatsoever, and that just feels a little more boring than it does, um, you know,
Yeah.
the person with problems, the dark fantasies, the dark comedies, even the dark romances. All those seem to be more real to me than it would be, you know, plain everything. And
Hmm.
I think that makes for better stories.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. We need
So, what
characters
was
who
your
are
influence?
not infallible. Say it again.
Oh, no, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh no, I just said we need characters who are not like infallible. They need to be realistic.
Absolutely. So, sound effects.
You heard it.
So,
Okay,
what
good.
got
I'm
you
happy
into?
that you did. I'm very happy that you did. That was my husband drinking. Were you drinking a bubbly or something just now? It's very carbonated. No, did you just say Burnham? Oh, okay. No, there was a Star Trek reference that just happened in his burp. That was not a real burp. That was a fake burp. Okay, so we love Star Trek in this household. I almost wore my Star Trek shirt, but I chose not to because it doesn't fit well. But um, so I love Star Trek Discovery. He hates it because of Michael Burnham. And he's just so when we were talking about, oh, we need a character who's not infallible, he's like, Burnham. Because
Mm-hmm.
everything goes well for her. She makes all these crazy decisions her own leadership is telling her she should not do. She does it anyways because she knows what she's doing, and everything goes right for her regardless of everything. So I don't know, I still think she's amazing, but my husband absolutely loathes the character.
I'm between you two, right? I loathe her at times and I love her at others. And I agree, she makes some of the most egregious choices ever. And you question how she could have ever made that choice. But then it does work out. Um,
It works
I
out.
do like, I like the idea that they came from like the golden age of technology too. Uh,
Yes.
they had to do something to explain that because Discovery came out, well before Enterprise timeline
Mhm.
wise, and it's you know hundreds of thousands of years more advanced. Um, but I like that they actually explain that they're from the timeline that's really based off of the golden age of the Federation,
Yeah.
and then now how they went back in time a little bit, or forward in time a bit. That's interesting. Things
Hmm.
kind of faded from there, which almost implies them leaving that original timeline is what caused part of the fading of, yeah. But
Yeah, I think so. I am loving, we're both loving the new show, New
Strange
Strange
New
New
World,
Worlds.
yeah.
Now that is a show. Like we're both like just kind of watching it with rapt attention. And the one that we watched yesterday, what was the episode we watched yesterday? It was episode 4. I don't know if you've seen episode 4 yet, but absolutely blew my mind. It was a fantastic episode, just everything about it. And of course, the medical drama draws me in as well.
Yeah.
So that
And
was a happy
and
number.
it's interesting they're making Spock out to be more like Kirk was with women, and never would have seen that coming from a Spock character.
Well, I don't know if that's happening yet. I'm only on episode 4, so
So is this the? I'm trying to figure out if I think I'm on episode 4 too, but he's got some love, or maybe I'm further on. Sorry, but what's interesting about the medical part of Strange New Worlds is how big of a role the nurse has, which is actually a
yes.
bigger role than the doctor.
Yes. I forgot there was a doctor.
Yeah, in other Star Treks, you didn't even know but there were nurses. There were these random, usually women,
Yeah.
around the medical bay. that didn't say anything, never interacted with anybody,
Hmm.
and never had any line in any of the stories. And then now all of a sudden you got Nurse Chapman, who
Hmm.
is way more of a character, has more depth than the Doctor does.
Which is good. Yeah, Deep Space Nine was definitely like that. You just never
Yeah,
saw, like, once in a blue moon you saw somebody helping Dr. Bashir's, but really he was the man, the one man, running the show.
yeah. And in real life, you see nurses more than you ever see doctors. So I've got to believe it's going to continue like that. And besides, I think everyone likes Nurse Chapman. So
Yeah, she's cool.
do want to ask you a little bit. I could talk about Star Trek for hours. I could also talk about
Same.
things like the Mandalorian or the Datalorian here.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but I do want to ask you how you got into writing. What really got you to put the pen to page, so to speak?
It is a journey. So let me see how quickly I can wrap that up. I did English is not my first language. Spanish is. My maiden name is Ramirez, so um, that's why I pronounce my name Andrea the way I do, because it's the closest thing to the Hispanic way, which is Andrea. So I failed first grade because I couldn't speak a lick of English. And it took a long time for me to really truly learn how to speak the language. When I got to third grade, when I moved to Florida, I I got pushed into ESOL class, which is a waste of time. It's English for a second language or whatever. It was just a waste of time. And it really pushed me back with everything else, with math, with other English courses, with everything. Like, I was so behind my peers, and it took forever for me to get ahead. But it did force me to do a lot of reading. And of course, all of those like book fairs were super fun because I'm like, now I know how to read. I can do something with this. But really, it started off with a lot of reading and a lot of poetry writing. I like to say that poetry writing is the gateway drug to writing novels. So I did a lot of poetry writing and a lot of like songwriting. Not that I can sing or do anything, but songwriting. I just love music. And it wasn't until high school, it was like 11th grade, my history, uh, what do you call it? Not teacher, the teacher that comes in because you don't have a teacher. Substitute teacher. My gosh, my
Substitute.
brain, you see, the words get deleted from my mind. My substitute teacher, we were covering the Holocaust, and he wanted us to do like a creative writing piece. And so I wrote something with a happy ending. And he was like, no, this is not realistic. You need to go back and rewrite this, or if not, I'll give you pretty much a failing grade. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I rewrote it and I cried like a baby. I mean, I killed them off. And the way that I did it was also really, I don't want to say the word poetic because that just sounds gross, but it was very touching and sad and depressing. Um, and so I killed them off and I gave the document to my teacher, and he said, now this is realistic. You did a good job. And he gave me a passing grade. But even then, and that was high school, even then, like I was like, okay, I like creative writing, but I'm going to stick to the poetry and to the songwriting. It wasn't until I was active duty Army that I started keeping a journal of everything I was going through, because I was like, most certainly I'm going to deploy, because I joined right after September 11th, and I was like, I'm definitely going to deploy. I'm going to keep a diary. I never deployed, but I kept the diary, and I started doing like interviews because I was stationed at Walter Reed, which is, I don't know if you know what Walter Reed
Yeah.
is, but it's okay. For the two people watching, Walter Reed is just a hospital where all the hurt soldiers come to get fixed. Essentially, that's just a terrible summary. But so I started interviewing all these soldiers, like so many soldiers. And so I kind of put it all together. One of my friends, he gave me his battle journal, literally his journal that he kept while he was overseas and watching all the scary, terrible things that he went through. He gave that to me. And then when I got out of active duty, I sat down and I just started writing. And it was supposed to be, right? It was supposed to be like an autobiography, but it turned into a fiction story. And the rest is history.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. My story is a little different. Um, growing up, I was never interested in writing. Matter of fact, growing up, I wasn't exposed to the opportunity to have books. Not very
Mm,
many of them. Definitely not ones I liked. There was no sci-fi, fantasy. I didn't know that existed until after college. Um, I've always been good in school and math and science and language. I think I forgot more than I've in language than anything else. I went on to be a software engineer. Um,
mm,
enjoyed that. I'm great at it. I'm interviewing for a CTO role right now. So I've had a very long, good career in software engineering. But throughout my life, I've had epic stories in my head. Lots of epic stories. A lot of the times, when I was younger, I had problems sleeping, and I would stay up nights just thinking of things because I was up.
mm-hmm,
And I had dozens of stories, and they've over the years morphed and changed and refined and kind of accumulated into a couple of ideas. And I never thought I'd actually write it.
mm-hmm.
After college, I got into reading and started reading a lot, hundreds of books a year to even thousands of books a year, and really enjoyed it. Yes.
Wow.
When I recently moved cross country just before COVID, I had to give away probably 7,000 books that I had in physical form, and I've had thousands of ebooks. So I've consumed a lot. A lot of that is not sleeping. So when I don't sleep, I read now, and I've done it a lot. But I never thought I'd write because everybody I've ever talked to, all the friends I grew up with, all the people I've worked with, all of my family, I've talked to them about these epic stories, and they're just, "Oh, let it go. You've got a great career. Let it go. It's not for you. You're never going to do it. You're going to make nothing of it. It's not going to be worth anything." I heard that my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And so these stories I never did anything with. And I joined a group several years ago on Facebook for one author. Um, and that author uh, started engaging with me directly. And I just started talking to him like, how did you go about doing it? And, what is it about? How did you go from they taught and going from teaching to writing full time? I don't think I'm ever going to be a full time author doing nothing else because I do have this other career.
Mm-hmm.
But um, really what got him in there. And he looked at me and said, the the hardest thing for me was book one.
Hmm.
And the hardest thing was getting to the point where I thought I could publish. And once I hit publish, the world changed for me. I actually took some time, gave him some ideas of what I thought for a story, and he said, "You know what, write it and publish it."
Mm-hmm.
And he coached me a couple times along the way. And then I just did it. And so I sat down, wrote the book, published it. I'd actually sat down, started writing other books while doing that, and decided to stop because I didn't think that first one was going to work.
Right.
And, I haven't sold thousands of copies. I've sold hundreds, but I haven't
Wow.
sold thousands of copies. And, am I going to be successful as a full time writer? Probably not. Do people enjoy my work? Yeah. I've
Mm-hmm.
got a couple of fans. I'm not as famous as anybody who's really famous, but I've got a couple of fans, and I've got probably hundreds of books I'll sell with book two, and then hundreds of books with book three. And what really came to me with book one and book two that I have out in editors now is it feels really good to get those stories out of my head.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing I think, even if no one likes it,
Mm-hmm.
I think just the effort of me getting it out of my head into something to say, there it is. It really exists. It's like made some thought physical. Um, Very much like what I do with software. but with
Mhm.
words, and I really enjoyed that. So it was a long journey. I'm 50. Published my first book when I was 49. Um,
Oh, wow. This is recent.
this is recent, yeah.
Wow.
I actually published the first book, in December last year.
December. That's awesome.
So it's new to me, but I love it, and I love sci-fi, and I'm very well read in sci-fi
You
and
sure
fantasy
are.
and
Thousands
dark.
of books.
So, uh,
Gosh.
it's uh, it's been a great journey, and I'll do it. I also found I write pretty fast.
Mm, I wish.
So my first book was 60,000 words, and my second book is 93,000 words. And I'm doing I'm going to do a novella here pretty soon. So I've got about the first 6 chapters in it. Only worked on it for a couple days. Um, that comes
I
from years of typing. Now, I will say, it sounds impressive, right? I get the ideas in my head and I build the whole story out first. So a lot of the time that is usually taken on someone sitting in front of writing it out, I do that away from the keyboard. So it's not like I'm cutting out that whole process that people have. I'm just doing it a little faster from my head to the keyboard.
Yeah, I'm an extremely fast typer, but I am very slow when it comes like it takes me a year to a year and a half to publish a book. You know, because of all the editing and the beta readers and then all of the other junk that comes with it. Like it takes like a good year, year and a half, but the actual writing process is maybe, I don't know, 4 months, give or take,
Yeah,
at least.
all the reviews and editing still take time. There's nothing I could reduce on that. Um,
Gosh, that's
I do know people that actually publish every 3 weeks, and I can't imagine how they do that.
I don't know how you can keep up with that.
You got to have a team, I think.
Yeah, and you got to pay them well or feed them well, one of those two.
Like
And
Michael
you know, you,
Anderley does it.
huh?
Michael Anderley does it, and I think he has 6 people working for him.
The dream.
Yeah. uh, but I will say my 93,000 word book, the first draft took me 2 months of
Nice.
writing part time. Um, and then, yeah, second draft, my edits, beta readers. It's been going on. So I've had my book in draft form like about a month and a half after I got my first book released. I had my second book ready for beta readers.
That is awesome. I really wish I could do that. And just like you, I have a full-time job also, so I don't
Hi,
understand
everyone.
how people can do that. And, you know, be a full-time job, you know, full-time worker, work writing, and then of course being either a parent or whatever else keeps you busy at home. You know, you don't have to be a parent to be busy, obviously, but um, yeah, I usually only get to write either like if I have the brain capacity, I'll write during my 30-minute break at home or at work. But I'm usually eating, and so it's hard for me to eat and type, and I only get 30 minutes. Um, and so normally I only write once the kids are in bed, and by that point I'm exhausted, and I have to wake up early the next day to go to work. So I only get about an hour, honestly, a night to work on my craft. Um, but you know,
Yeah.
you were mentioning earlier, like you finally got the story out of your head. And here's the reality. Maybe not for all authors, but for a majority of us, we don't have a choice. A lot of us don't really want to sit down and just type. A lot of us don't really want to fork over hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to write a darn book and publish it and be our own marketing team and deal with editors. And we don't really want to do that. But living with the stories in your head and not giving them a place to breathe is a worse situation. And you just gotta let them out, even if nobody knows. You want obviously to share your world with other people because you love it. You've been living with it, maybe for years, right?
Hmm.
Like these characters, from what I'm, someone says, preach it. Yes. Um, like for example, I'm sure with you, but because you started kind of later on, and I'm assuming you've had that particular story or stories marinating in your head for a while. But like the one from my story, like these people, I've thought about this particular book when my daughter, who's now 9, when she was still in my arms, and I was like bottle feeding her. Like I remember thinking, oh, I think I want to write a story. Like the book actually started off as a young adult fantasy. It's just I added some adult, things in there, and I was like, this is not young adult anymore. Now it's older, like, but it's been marinating in my head for at least 7 years. That's a long time to
Yeah.
keep a story locked into your brain and not letting it just out. And you're right, it feels so good.
I actually started it early on in COVID. I lost a role um, due to COVID, and really good job. And it was at the level I'm at. It takes a long time to get another job. When you're at VP CTO level, it takes up to 9 months to find another role.
Oof.
So what I did is I made sure every day I was doing work like networking. I was doing my looking for roles, everything else during the day. So I committed to myself 40 hours a week is looking for work or networking or doing other things. And I won't write during those times. I only write in the evenings. Now I'm lucky my kids are one's turning 13 next week and the other's 11. So while I'm a parent, there's not a lot of hands-on care needed on a
Mm-hmm.
nightly basis. I'm also lucky that I don't really care about most TV. I'll watch some of the sci-fi things we already talked about. Make sure to catch those, usually with one or more of my kids. Um, but then I've just kind of totally gotten rid of TV outside those really core things I don't want to miss.
Yeah.
Um, and I write every night. And so I'll take a couple hours a night and throw out anywhere between 1,500 to 4,500 words a night, um,
Wow.
depending on how complex the story is there and how many times I go back and edit as I'm going. Um, but I'll do that, but only on stories I've already had. So getting a little more detailed in what you're talking about. Yeah, I early on was building so many stories in my head, I had to change the way I thought about them. And that kind of morphed into what I have now, this whole idea of a universe.
Mm-hmm.
And it morphed into the idea of a lot of different portions and realms in this universe. And so I kind of compartmentalized a lot of stories over time into this bigger thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only way I could manage it. Now that I'm finally letting it out, it's like flipping the cork off and just slowly letting things come out and
And let it go.
let it go into the ether. At some point, I'll run out. I'm sure I'll hit a wall there. But I'm also super creative, and I have that whole background of things I've read to influence me. So that would, I think we'll get there. I will say one thing I didn't realize is how much writing is going to slow down reading.
Oh, it's
Oh my
the
God.
worst. It's the worst part because there's a lot of books, not only like the TikTok famous books, because there is quite a few that I want to read. But like, there's some others that are like indie authors that I'm like, ooh, that I've been getting to know through TikTok. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're such a cool author. I want to support them. And then I look at their book and I'm like, actually, this looks like a good book. And I've purchased them and they're just sitting in my Kindle library. And I know for a fact I'm not going to get to it for a good year to 2 years. And I have this wonderful thing about me where I'm both obsessive, laser focused, and
Oh,
also
sorry,
very
CJ.
ADD. I'm very ADD. Like, it just depends what my brain wants to do on a particular day, honestly. But um, there's just so many books that I want to read, and I'm a slow writer, but I'm also a slow reader. It takes me about a week to read a book, um, which it's not slow compared to other people, I suppose, but it's pretty
Right.
slow. But here's the problem: everything else dies. Let's put it this way, and this is a true thing that happened. And I wonder if my husband will remember this conversation. When I was going for, I don't know if it was when I was going for my bachelor's or my master's degree, one of those two. I was trying to manage, that degree while also reading, not writing, because I wasn't writing at the time, just reading books. And my husband actually told me, like, he gave a house rule: you may not read fictional books while your semester is on. Like, when your semester is done, you can pick up a book and read it. Because his face, he's like, I love reading, but that is the difficulty.
Long time no see, CJ. We need to do a live still. I haven't seen you online for a while, and I've been on and off for a bit. Um, yeah, I like to call that masochistic readers.
Mm.
And especially when I was younger, I was very much like when I was getting into the books after college, early career, I would like find a decent book and just like, I'll just do another hour, another hour. It's okay if I get 2 hours of sleep tonight. That won't be a problem.
That'll be a problem.
Um, yeah, I've done a lot of books like that. I'm a little more mature about it now. Um, Sometimes. I
Sometimes.
also have my Kindle library full of other authors, especially when it comes down to like I do author swaps through BookFunnel.
Oh yeah.
And oh my God, in all good intent, I download like 10 books. I want to support these authors and I want to go out and make good comments, maybe do some editorial reviews or something. And no, I do make sure to prioritize if I ever do like an author swap, like a real swap between individuals.
Yeah.
So like right now, my priority read is something that I agreed to do a mutual review through, and I'll put that at the top of the queue. But now I still have those other 12, 14, 20 books on the Kindle that I'm just not reading.
Yep.
Uh, but sometimes you have to make sacrifices for your craft.
Yes. It's a sacrifice because I'd rather be reading.
Auditioning for books. Are you auditioning for like reading an audio book or something?
That sounds like fun if that's the case.
This is what the hardest part about doing lives is when you have people typing and you're asking them a question. And you just have to
Yeah.
wait for that reply. Um,
Let us know.
we'll see if CJ gets back to us on that.
Yeah.
But let's
Yeah.
see. Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know, CJ. Maybe you should do an audio book for me or something. Although at this point I'd have to do something. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have to do something at this point that is a share of the royalties because I haven't made enough to justify paying for an audiobook yet.
That's the thing. Like, I have poured so much money into my books. I haven't made back any profit, like, period. Nor do I expect that to be the case unless something crazy happens. I would love, of course, to have an audiobook done. Like, who doesn't want to hear
Mm-hmm.
someone reading their story? And I would do it. I think I have a decent, maybe not a good voice, but I have a decent voice for reading out loud. But I'd rather be reading or writing, and I don't have a studio. So, and and they're worth paying a lot of money because it's a lot of work. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's one of those things. I know a lot of. I've talked to a couple authors now who've done the royalty route, and I don't know how that works offhand, but that sounds like a possibility. Um, I don't even know what the profit margin is on audiobooks because I haven't looked into them yet.
yeah,
Uh, but it's an interesting thought for the future,
it's always been a thought
especially
for
once I
me.
get book 2 and 3 and 4 out there. My series, I plan on doing at least 10 books.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah, hopefully I could keep the momentum going and get there. But yeah, it's a real. I don't want to give too much away, so
No.
it's a real interesting thing I'm working on that has a lot of opportunity. But it's going to be the question is if I lose readers or if readers can't make the commitment to go between the different genres, that's going to be what would kill it, if anything. Um,
Yeah.
but there's so much potential and so many ideas I already have. Um, 20% for authors, 20% for narrators, and then the rest for all the other people that make the most money.
Yeah. Amazon.
Yeah,
um,
I'll have to think
yeah.
about it.
I mean,
What's an
yeah.
ebook even? I mean, what's an audiobook even sell for?
Well, a lot actually, but obviously we don't see that money. So, for example, if you were to go on Amazon, an audiobook, especially for something as big as mine, like my book is about 120,000 words. Um, it could cost over $40 or something silly for the audiobook. Again, it makes sense, right? That's a lot of recorded time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people don't just buy an audiobook. They use a service like Audible or Chirp or whatever those are called. So that way, like he says, it's royal. He or she, I don't know, is a royalty share. So they only pay like $10 a month, and so you just kind of get a snippet of that. But they do tell you what the retail price is. So it's like you can either buy this audiobook, flat out for like $40, or you can get it as a free credit with your Audible
Mm-hmm.
subscription. Where you pay $15 a month, I think is what it is. It's worth the subscription, but I don't,
Yeah, I'm not a big. Well, I've never actually tried it. Uh, I've never tried doing audiobooks. I probably should have when I used to early in my career delivery driver, but I never did. Um, and nowadays I work from home, so I don't even have like commute opportunities. So I
yeah.
enjoy reading enough until I get too old and my eyesight goes away. I think I'll stick to actual reading.
Well, I think for me, and maybe this is a question that CJ can answer, my the reason why I'm hesitant to do it is because believe me, I want to. All right, but I'm one of those people who overthinks everything, and I can't promise you. I can't promise the narrator that they're going to make the money back. Like, okay, yeah, we'll do royalty share, and that's great if the book makes money. If the book doesn't make money, because I mean, how I'm but a drop in the ocean. Like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
you haven't sold that many books. Well, I've sold even less than you have, and my book has been out for a hot minute. So, what if I've only made? Let's just give a very basic answer. What if I've only made about $200 in the last 3 years for my book? That's that's not much for the narrator. That doesn't really pay for the amount of time that they put into this. So that's the reason why. um yeah, and I see when you pay up front for the audiobook, you get more. Like, yeah, I've seen that on ACX, I think is what it was, because I've read into this. um I can't pay up front, and if you do like the royalty share wherever where it's kind of high, I just feel like that narrator might be losing out, and I would feel terrible.
Yeah, I think CJ is definitely right on that. It's up to the narrator. And what I've heard from a couple people who said they worked with narrators is they had to take some time to find someone who isn't as well established as a
Mhm.
narrator, and looking to get their name out there. Like CJ said, he's looking to get his name out. I think when people start out in that, they're really more willing to take the risk with an unknown author than they would anywhere else. Um, and I think that's going to be, a lot of us smaller authors, baby authors still, are going
Yeah.
to have to take a chance with the narrators too, right? Because I know when I go listen to voices and stuff, I've heard some really great voices out there, and I look at what they've done. I know I'd never get that person because they're going to be the ones that, are going to stick with, all the big money on the books.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's probably the right attitude,
Yeah.
CJ. If you've got the voice for it and have that nice, clean, crisp ability and able to emotionalize the words and could do it well. And the first
Yeah.
few aren't gonna make you much, but then it goes from there to getting your name well known. And
Exactly.
honestly, I think if you get someone like in CJ's state who wants to get his name out there or his voice out there, get his voice out there, and you have someone like at my stage who wants to get their books known, that might be a mutually beneficial relationship. Um,
Yeah,
we'll talk
definitely.
more, CJ, maybe.
I know
Um,
exactly. Like now, I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know if you would like to read my book. I, I am actually something I didn't mention earlier. Book one is being re-edited. I've kind of recently, as in like the last week, I've just purged paragraphs of stuff in the book because I just want it to flow better and be and just really pop a lot more. So I'm making a lot of edits, and even right now, like before I went live, I was making like book club questions and things like that to kind of make it more interactive. So I'm happy that I never did an audiobook before because, gosh, it would be expensive to re-narrate this. But
that's a good point.
once it goes through this radical change, gosh, it would be awesome. Of course, like it would be a dream to have a narrator go at this. So, but kind
Hey,
of going,
CJ, I have an idea for you. For authors like myself and Andrea, if you were to go out and read our books and then come up and say, "Hey, I'm a narrator, starting narrator," if if you're ready to work, I love your book, or I like your book, or I think I could do your book, and work from there. If you've already read the material and approach the author, I bet you'd get a lot of people willing to um, possibly say yes more quicker. Just an idea. That might be a lot of overhead unless you like to read a lot. Uh,
that wasn't a lot of work. We're at least following their TikToks to see what their books are about and getting a feel
yeah.
for, for that. And I was going to say earlier that, if somebody like CJ is on TikTok, and obviously you are, that's cross promotion, definitely. Like if you're talking about your book and you're
Mhm.
talking about the narrator, oh my gosh, guys, listen to this sound clip. This person's amazing. You got to go onto their page and like it. And then likewise, they're doing the same thing. Hey, right now I'm working on this particular project, and I've gotten approval from the narrator to show this clip to you. And they're going through all of that. That's just more people talking about that book, and of course that job, right? Because for the narrator, it's really not necessarily about the book, but about their ability to narrate it. So it is actually a smart idea to not just go onto ACX. It's a smart idea to have somebody who has a social media presence as well.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk more, CJ. CJ, if I remember correctly, you also write, so you're not just a narrator. So CJ, I believe, is in the sci-fi universe with us, um, and I want to get him onto another live. We had said we were going to do live a couple months ago, and we never have. And I believe CJ, you hit 1,000 followers, right? I think he probably answered I do to the sci-fi part of that. But as he's following up there, I still have time to hang out. We've gone past the 45 we said we were going to do.
Oh gosh.
Whenever you want to end this, we can. Um, and of course, I think I want to do more follow up ones with you. I want to keep a network of authors going where we could chat periodically and keep doing sci-fi stuff. And maybe as we move forward, maybe I can get a um, some sort of time frame or time slot that is more regular that people will know we're going to be out doing this. But this was
Mhm.
the first of hopefully many more sci-fi talks with friends, and
Yes.
we'll go as long as you'd like to go.
Yeah, I actually, not to sound like an author, but I'm going to go back to writing in my book. My parents are taking care of our children for the week, and it's been a beautiful week of just working and quietness. And I want to, carpe diem. I want to seize
Mhm.
the night actually, because it's not daytime anymore, at least not here in Florida. But
That must be amazing. I've never had a week without my kids around.
I gotta tell you, my friend, it has been amazing. And not only like, haha, the kids aren't here, they're having a blast. Okay. I video chatted with my mom and the kids last night, and my son, who's 3 years old, was like, I don't want to go to daddy's house. And I'm like, first of all, it's mom and dad's house. We both pay the bills. And second of all, like, really, that's how you're doing us, dude? Like, you're doing us dirty? But, grandma and grandpa are feeding them all this delicious Colombian food. They're taking them to the splash pad. They're doing so many fun things. And honestly, we're too tired. We only do fun things on the weekends. We're not doing fun things on the weekdays. That's unheard of. Um,
Yeah, parents
so
lost weekdays a long time ago.
it is.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It was great chatting with you. Like I said, we'll do it again. We'll arrange some time. CJ, we need to arrange some time, and of course, we'll talk more. Maybe in the live, we can talk a little more, CJ, about what it is for doing the audio books and talk about it like that as part of our conversation.
Yeah, and
But
actually,
again, we're authors. Look at our profiles, check out our books, follow us. I'll follow back, and let's create some relationships here. Thank you, everyone who's still here, who you know participated. Thank you very much. Weekends, yeah, that happens. So CJ, lives on a Tuesday night maybe with me and you. I won't try to get you on one of the weekend ones. I am going to be doing weekends for authors who are in the UK, though. I've got a couple of UK authors that want to do this.
that's awesome. Across the pond. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say, see, if you want to friend me. I'm assuming you're already friends with Mike, but um, that way we can keep on talking and stuff. And yeah,
and if anyone else here has any questions or comments before we jump off this thing, shoot them out now or forever hold your peace, or at least until next week.
yeah, or you can DM us if you're friends.
Yeah. Actually, no, you could even do three when you're not when you've only friended someone. I just got that option yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, I friended another author and said, "Hey, I'm another sci-fi author," and I was able to do three messages, and then it cut me off. And then they followed me to get more. So I
That's
might be special. You know how TikTok does this? They roll out features so oddly. So
so
um,
odd.
it may not be always. I am going to try to do this every Tuesday. I've got to line up people though. So what I'm looking for is sci-fi authors to go live with me. I don't have another Tuesday booked yet, but I'm going to see if I can get someone booked before next Tuesday. And I will try to rotate through. I will obviously go live again with Andrea. We had a great time, or at least I had a great time.
I,
Hopefully, she did as well.
I definitely did. Thank you so much, Mike, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Would you be up for if we did this with like four people too? So if like
Oh,
we were to say, hey, CJ, next week you want to join the two of us, um, we could do that as well.
yeah, definitely.
So I'll message both of you guys. Maybe both of you would be next Tuesday, or maybe random other people that I don't know who yet. But I'm going to try to do this as often, at least weekly, is my hope. The goal for this is to build a network of sci-fi lovers on TikTok. We've got to be more represented here. I know there's a lot of them out there. We just haven't gotten them together yet. And I'm hoping this is just a start of what we could do to get a bunch of different sci-fi lovers together.
Yeah,
And it's going to start with us authors and stuff.
those sci-fi readers, man, they are hard to find. I know they're out there, but they are hiding.
Yeah, I know one sci-fi author that has 30,000 followers, and I really want to get them on. If they
Uh,
will do a live for me, I think that would be a great cross population. But there's only like one on TikTok I found with that type of following.
Yep. We'll
So
get
if you know sci-fi authors, have them follow me, have them talk to me. I'll follow back, and we'll get something going. If you're an
yeah.
aspiring sci-fi author, follow me, and once you hit 1,000 followers, we'll get you in a live as well. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yes,
Uh,
thank you.
I'm going to do some writing tonight as well. Um, and actually, I'm going to do some editing tonight, finish editing on my second book from my beta readers. And we'll gather back up next week. I'll send some messages. CJ, I'll send you a message as well. Thank you,
Nice.
everyone. Have a wonderful night. I can even do the live
Yeah,
life well and prosper type thing. Um, so
live long and prosper.
yeah, yeah. I hate this backwards filter. I can't ever get the direction right. All right. Well, thank you very much. Have a lovely night.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.